Thanks for joining DataVale's webinar today in partnership with New York Oracle Users Groups. Senior Cloud Architect Brandon Webb will be your speaker today, and we'll be covering why you should consider an Oracle to Amazon RDS migration. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping items. Please submit any questions at the bottom panel of your screen in the Q&A section, and Brandon will do his best to cover them at the end of today's session, time permitting. We're going to record today's session, and we'll be sending out a replay of the webinar as soon as it's available. You'll also be able to access links to Oracle resources in the chat section that I'll be adding once we get started. That's all from me, Brandon. Where to go?
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Great to have you today. I'm going to be speaking today about why you should consider an Oracle to Amazon RDS migration. First off, we'd like to thank the leadership of New York Oracle Users Group for working together with us so that we can bring this to you. We hope this presentation is helpful for you in making decisions and as well as looking at the options that are out there. So a little bit about me, Brandon Webb. I'm a cloud architect, but I come from a background of being an Oracle database administrator. I have loved working on Oracle databases. It has been a phenomenal experience. And now that cloud's around, I thought, hey, I better start taking the cloud, the jump to cloud and start doing more with cloud. I have my AWS Solutions Architect and Oracle Solutions Architect certifications and continue to work toward the professional certifications. My favorite thing to do, honestly, is spending time with my family and mountain biking. I'm a huge mountain biker. Like I said, I'm from Moab, Utah. But when I'm done with mountain biking and it's either 4 a.m. in the morning or 10 at night, I go to what I call the dungeon, and it's time to code or to write some new app or to work on something awesome. So I, like you, love technology and want to continue to work towards learning more about it. So I work for DataVale. DataVale has been in the database service for about 13 years. We started out primarily supporting databases, Oracle and SQL Server. And then more recently, we've added support for other databases such as Mongo, Postgres, etc. In recent years, through growth and acquisition, we've expanded to other areas of managed services. And so I just encourage you to reach out via our website for more information to the services we provide. So before we go into the agenda for today, I just wanted to let everyone know that there is free swag out there. We are doing what's called a cloud adoption survey. We're trying to learn more about organizations' cloud adoptions and usage for different workflows. And as part of this, we'd like for you to take part in this survey that we've launched through Tech Validate, who's an independent surveyor. You can use the links in the slides. I believe Jen is going to also post it as well. But basically today, if you have time, we would really appreciate that feedback. You can win a work from home package today. Comes with a lot of great things. And so just want to put that out there for you and just appreciate everything that you guys do. So here is a high-level overview of the agenda that we have. These are the day-to-day things that as Oracle database administrators, we kind of do. This is kind of what helped me come up with this agenda. Instead of just saying, well, go online and rehashing things off the internet, I thought, how can I make this more applicable to the database administrators as well as the managers over at the database administrators? Instead of only like, this is why AWS is better, I want to look at seeing how things that make us mad or drive the business owners crazy of, oh, we keep complaining about this, or hey, look, the backups aren't working, or hey, the whole correlation between the server team of, hey, this performance problem, it's from the database. No, it's from the server team. And you just have this back and forth. I want to help understand and take our environment so it's not looking like this. Complaining, frustration. We've all had it there, right? We've either had it with management or with tech things that just don't work. So the whole point of today's presentation is to show you why you should consider, and like I said, consider a migration to Amazon RDS database. So classifying these kind of complaints that I've discussed into a true agenda so that we're not just speaking bluff all day and talking behind people's back, which is not what I'm advocating for at all, is the agenda here. We're going to be looking at security with the cloud, administrative tasks, availability, backup and recovery. These are the main points that I want to go over with you today. And I hope that you can see after today's webinar, the benefit of AWS and how migrating your Oracle database to Amazon's Oracle RDS solution can play a vital role for you, not only in your career or in your, trying to learn more technologies, but even for your company. And so why do all of this? It is simply for the savings. And I'm not talking about savings in regards to, just money. It's the savings of mistakes, of making a mistake. It's the idea of licensing. It's the idea of redundancy or software that's not needed. Just two examples recently that I've seen within my career are, one is first the licensing problem. So recently had a customer and they had a ton of developers, and some of you have probably seen this before, to where the developers said, oh, this is a really neat feature. And the DBAs did their job, the developers did their job, but the DBAs kind of, not mistakenly, but the developers had access to DBA privileges. And so the developers who just are, developing, building solutions, they decided, hey, let's turn on this extra cost option. Well, that didn't go so well for that company when they got audited by Oracle. And so it's things like that, as well as another story that recently happened was the idea of, oh, it was the story of they were wanting to add more memory to the host. This was in an ESX cluster, and basically they said, oh, we're at our capacity, we can't add any more memory. Well, that becomes a problem, right? So the idea of, oh man, now we can't have more space, we got to get more hardware, we've got to make a purchase order, go through, there's just a lot involved. But basically we did find out that they did have more memory, they just were either holding it back or didn't know. But the concept is the same. It is this idea of savings in many aspects, not just in cost and other things. It's the idea of saying, hey, how can I get to the cloud and what things are going to be beneficial to me? And so starting with our agenda, I want to start with security first, and I'd like to start with the question. Now, this question is going to come with an awesome giveaway. So if you just want to give your reply in the chat, here's the question. What's a hacker's favorite season? I will give everyone a second, and hopefully the picture doesn't give it away. All right. Right to it. Fishing season. All right. Looks like Byron Pierce answered first. So Jenna will get in contact with you for your prize. So I know all of you are have either fallen over your desk or you're laughing hysterically, but yeah, this is a bad dad joke. But security is a big deal, and it should be a big deal to everyone, because when we think about our own job, we want to have security within our job. And if we're not making the company that we're working for or the vision of what we're trying to do secure, how is that going to be beneficial to anyone? So when we think of security, how can I make my system more secure? RDS takes care of a whole slew of things. It's at a high level, we as DBAs take some of the following things on our daily tasks. So basically limiting the DBA user, the concept of least privileges, or as well the concept of the system passwords. Are we rotating them on a quarterly basis? Do we have HIPAA constraints? Do we have SOX constraints? Right, there's a lot of ideas here that we can do. Well, with Amazon RDS, there is no access assist. Wait, no access assist? How are we gonna do anything? Well, that's the biggest thing is we may think, oh, well, then we might as well just give them the keys to the kingdom. Well, let's take a step back. With not having the sys user, we're not able to go into the internals of Oracle. Well, how often do we as DBAs go into the internals of Oracle, as well as how horrible would it be if someone were to do something that we didn't know about as a sys user? So in the RDS model, some may say that this is bizarre, but AWS is taking a step back and saying, hey, they don't need to do all these extra things inside the database all the time. They just need their application functioning. And that's what they're trying to get us to focus on. And so with this, they give us a user that is privileged to do a lot of things, but doesn't have the sys password or the sys login. So this is a huge benefit already. The idea that we're trying to take away components that really aren't needed as much. Now, some may say that that's not true, but when we come down to it, how many of us honestly spend our day logged in as sys looking at the internals of Oracle? So another thing is encryption. How many of you out there have encrypted your database before? Well, with Amazon RDS, the database comes encrypted. It's an amazing service that Amazon provides so that at the storage layer, all of our data is already encrypted. We don't have to worry about, hey, what type of encryption are we using? They already come with the default industry standard. They're working towards making sure that we are secure in our database setup. Now, as well, there's other things, as you can see in here, for example, no OS management. To some, how do I get to my database? Well, you know, the concept being that, are you using the newer tools? Are you using the things that Oracle's providing, and are you keeping up with that? So, for example, are you using SQL Developer or are you using SQL Plus? Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to both, but AWS is saying, hey, let's not give them no OS management. Now, think of this in your environment. How many people could simply, if the Unix administrators haven't disabled certain settings, could easily say, hey, look, I'm going to put an at bomb, for those of you who are familiar with at bombs, into a cron tab job, or to run it sometime so that basically, hey, I'm just going to blow away all these files. That's a huge deal. So the concept of moving to AWS RDS is, hey, I don't need the access to the OS. I don't need to be able to get into certain files. I don't need to create external tables, which I will be going over a little bit later. Some of you may be saying, well, that's how our application runs with external tables. But the AWS has come up with other solutions for this, but this is a huge benefit. And then, of course, my absolute favorite is patching. Who patches all the time, right? We as DBAs may spend every quarter patching. Some of us may have an N-1 schedule where we're patching after everyone else is patched, but patching, right? We've got to keep up to date with the patches. But how do we do this, right? And so here's a great, I'm going to skip down to my next slide, which talks about patching. I have spent time and time again, download the patch, upload the patch, SCP it to this server, push it out to all servers, or run from an NFS, right? There's so many solutions that everyone's done. But as you can see here, Amazon is taking away a huge part of some DBA's lives. The idea that, oh, they're not patching anymore. They don't have to say, hey, what are you guys doing today? Oh, we're patching. Well, I thought you were patching last quarter. Well, we got to do it again. Now, with AWS, they have set it up so that they take care of the patching for you. And on top of taking care of the patching for you, you can simply set a schedule to say, hey, when the next patch comes out, let's set a window that every Sunday, check for the patch. If it's out, then boom, it's going to automatically take the database down, do the patch, and then bring the database back up. Of course, you'll still need to work with your application teams for testing and making sure that everything's running correctly. But this is a huge advantage to not having to patch and download files and move files around, patch verify. Oracle takes care of all of this for you. This is such an amazing feature, which leads me into the next subject, which is my biggest one that I love to talk about: administrative tasks. We do things as DBAs all day, and there are times that it's applicable, but there are times that we've been doing things over and over and over again. Things such as, hey, can I get more space added to this table space? Or, hey, yeah, you're going back to the customer. How big do you want it? Oh, our upgrade's going to be maybe like 10 gigs. Ends up being 20. Table space filled. Got to get on a call. Right? There's just so much that we're doing. Administrative tasks that are redundant that could be completed a more efficient and effective way. And so this is some of the benefits of Amazon AWS with RDS. The idea that you can simply add storage. This was one of my favorites, this video slide here, is that, hey, someone needs to add storage to a database. Well, before it was, hey, system admins, can you guys add a file to this mount so that we can get more space? Yes, how much do you want? And there's this whole conversation. Well, AWS has taken that whole server administration part and put it into the DBA's hands to where you just simply say, hey, how much space do you need? Perfect. We will allocate that to the database. And that works as expected. There's also the option to enable storage auto scaling, which is a great benefit as well. As you can see here, some of the other things that I've talked about are configuration management, which I will also talk a little bit more about in a later slide. But the idea of, hey, we have this SP file over here, we have this XP file here. They're a little different. They're not the exact same. Every database is different. Well, why don't we just make that simple? Why don't we have the same settings across that makes sense in an environment where those settings don't need to be changed as often? Things such as compliance, right? The ability to have easy reporting. AWS, as you'll see in a later slide, has built-in capabilities similar to Enterprise Manager that give you compliance, and you can look at different things into your databases across your environment. Standardizing knowledge transfer, huge one. AWS has standardized a lot of their documentation. And so with that, the idea of, hey, we've got a knowledge transfer from this person to this person. Well, as long as they're aware of what's going on within AWS, they can navigate the environment as long as they're set up with the correct privileges. But in regards to the database structure and setup, they can view all of that because Amazon's taking a step back and saying, look, here's what you can view about your database, and it's available. Whereas we still will need to work on application understanding, but the idea behind the database setup is so critical with AWS tagging and other resources and the ability to put comments. You have the ability to have in a one place in the console, AWS console through the web interface, a one-stop shop that you can view everything. And I don't even want to get started on this topic, which is amazing, is a code pipeline. Now, it's applicable more or less to developers, I think, up front. And so it's we could go on a whole topic and a whole entire road trip about what code pipeline is. The slide deck includes the link to code pipeline to learn more about it. But code pipeline is the concept of building these staging areas where basically you can say, here's the dev area pipe, here's the test pipe, and then here's the production pipe. And with that, you can say, hey, we're going to apply these changes in dev. And if they are successful and you're able to verify that through certain code or setup, that it will automatically roll that out to test without you having to do anything. It will just say, yep, it was successful, boom, go to test. And then boom, it will go to prod. Well, but maybe we don't want it to go to prod yet. Maybe we require a manual approval where we need someone to actually click the button or send an email to them to notify them like, hey, this change has been tested in dev, test, and prod. That's the same setup you can do, where originally for developers, you can do the same setup for your Oracle RDS databases. The next concept that I want to jump into is availability. After all, no one enjoys being stood up. I actually heard a pretty funny joke the other day. Uh, After years of getting yelled at and doing his work, he finally stood up to his bully. Well, guess what? He fired him because his bully was his boss. So I don't want anyone to lose their job because, wait, that wasn't backed up, or wait, we don't have a standby or a disaster recovery plan. This is a huge deal when it comes to databases, especially mission critical or production databases. So AWS provides different capabilities for availability. As you can see here, standby management, and then some other topics, which I'm going to discuss a little bit, as Cloud and Door, as well as kind of data migration services, and then Golden Gate. So as you can see here, you can create a standby instance so simply. It's very simple. Whereas beforehand, it was the concept of, hey, I need to simply take my database, I've got to do a duplicate, I've got to change some scripts, I've got to turn it on. AWS is taking it to the next level. Create a standby instance. And I put this slide very big just for that reason. It's so simple to create a standby instance within a different availability zone. Excuse me, let me take a drink. Within a different availability zone. This is a huge win without having to worry so much about, oh, is it lagging behind, or did I bring that up correctly, or is there any problems? This is a huge deal, creating a standby instance. Now, as well, before I talk about Cloud and Door, which is one of the biggest ones that I've recently come to learn about, is how do you get to the cloud, right? This concept of what can you use. So there is what's called database migration services, also DMS for short, which is a homogeneous database migration, where the source and the target database engines are the same. So with Oracle, you can use this migration service to migrate your Oracle database to RDS. This is a huge advantage. There are other tools that you can use, and one of those tools, for example, is the AWS schema conversion tool. Now, this one is specifically, let's say that you're going from a SQL Server database and you want to go to Oracle. This is called a heterogeneous database migration. This gets more down into the actual schema and tables, whereas you can then say, hey, I want to change database engines. This Oracle RDS stuff sounds really amazing. Well, that's an option as well. But one of the best tools that I have recently come to learn and love is Cloud and Door. Cloud and Door is a service offered by AWS that gives you the ability to bring your source environment to the cloud. Or if, for example, you're running EC2 instances with Oracle in the cloud, let's say that you didn't take the jump of switching completely to Amazon RDS, and you're running your Oracle just normally on a server in the cloud. Cloud and Door is an amazing product that takes what's called a Cloud and Door agent, installs it on your operating system, and then takes at the block level, replicates that to the AWS cloud. Now, this is a huge benefit because Cloud and Door gives you the ability to test those DR situations. Now, this has always been amazing to me because I don't know how many of you have been in this situation, but it's usually been something along the lines of, all right, team, let's get together. We've got to work on our DR situation. Is it documented? Check. Perfect. Let's test it. Well, we haven't tested it before. So you're not, right? We've all been in that. Some of us have been in that concept to where we may have a DR plan, but have we tested it? Cloud and Door does exactly this. It creates and installs an agent without a downtime on your servers, and it looks at the block level. Now, this is huge because then what you can do is you can then replicate and make your instance on your on-premise or in the cloud that you have running on EC2 replicated over to another cloud instance. This is a huge deal because then you can basically say, hey, look, I want to test this out, which then you can stand it up, you can run a test, and it will create that instance in the cloud. And that's a huge deal because then you can test part of your application to connect to that instance to then run and verify that your DR recovery and DR and availability is all working. Now, that's great, but guess what? Then you just tear it down and then you're good to go. That's it. You have this amazing I keep saying disaster recovery tool that lets you test that. What a huge advantage of AWS. And I know that there are some specific thoughts put into this product because as you want to test your migrations or anything, you can use this tool as well. It's a huge benefit. Now, going into RDS backups and recovery. As DBAs, everyone is aware of RMAN. I've been told, I don't know about the old version of RMAN, but I've been told it was a pain. Well, AWS is saying, well, hey, let's take anything you've known with RMAN in a way, and let's just automate it. That is a huge benefit of RDS. You have the ability to simply say, hey, I want to take backups of my database on this schedule. AWS take care of it. Now that creates a lot of heartache for some who may say, well, I need to know my backups. I need to know that they're working. Well, with automation, as you'll see in other slides, you have the ability to either test those backups, stand up other instances, and you can do it on the fly. You can tear it up or you can tear it down. You also have this ability of snapshots where you can say, hey, I want a snapshot of my database at this time, and then I can share that snapshot. Let's say that we wanted to give that snapshot to another customer. We can then say, here's the database, here's the snapshot, and we're good to go. This coordinates with Amazon S3, which is the file storage service for Amazon, which I'll be talking about a little bit more later. But this is a huge benefit. So while we may be moving away from backups and having to do backups and recoveries ourselves, the concept is, what should a database administrator do? I mean, it looks like they might as well just take care of all of it for us. Well, that's not true, because as you can see on this next slide, there are so many DBAs who have wanted to do performance monitoring and tuning, because this is where our skill set comes in. Now, if we're fighting fires all day, space management, backups not working, and we're doing these things over and over and over again, new system, reset up backups, recreate users, add profiles, all those administrative tasks, where those are taken away, we then get the opportunity to work on the true role, what I consider, of what a DBA should be doing, performance monitoring. Performance and monitoring, I should say. So within AWS, the concept is, I can't get to my OS system. How am I going to view the alert log? They've taken this to where it's all done through the console. Now, there is another option of doing this, but one of the best things that they've done is, as you can see in this video, is given us the ability to say, hey, look, I want to view my alert log. I want to view my listener logs. And I'm sure there will be more information that will be coming out from AWS as things continue to develop. But being able to view the logs, no more, hey, can I mail this log to you? Mail, I don't know how many of you have done this, but I'm a huge mail minus S, just the quick and dirty way. Probably not the best way, but hey, mail this over to coworker. Hey, can you look at this? Right, there's so many different options. But AWS is saying, hey, let's just do it all through the GUI. You can then, or through the web console, through the AWS console. And so with this being stated, you can download the logs. It's really simple. You can look at a specific time frame. Then you have CloudWatch metrics for alerting. This is a huge deal. The ability to basically have Enterprise Manager in a different view, as you can see here, It's a little bit different than probably what you're used to, but the same exact things are being monitored. If you want to look at different things like the CPU, or you want to look at the physical reads, this is the same and has such an amazing concept of being able to drag down and drill into things. As you can see in this video example, that you can look specifically at little things that you want to monitor within your database. This is a similar a feature packed tool called Performance Insights. And what's really nice is that Performance Insights isn't only applicable to just the database. The AWS has made it to where you can monitor multiple services. You can monitor Amazon S3. You can monitor, everything that you do. If you're using Lambda, so many services that are function packed into AWS. But this is a huge deal. And so we go to my next slide here. This leads into automation. Automation is my #1 favorite thing about AWS, is they are trying, in my mind, to take away the redundant things that we don't need to be doing to be able to give us the tools necessary, as well as the time to look into our database and actually monitor and tune it correctly. Make sure that it's working. That if a case is saying, hey, look, you guys are, taking you 20 minutes to run this report, I can get that report down to 2 minutes. What a big deal. What if we have developers or people within our organization, they say, oh, I'm going to do this, run this report, and then I'll just go kind of do something like go get a coffee for 20 minutes. Not saying that people are wasting time. That's not what I'm trying to say here, but it's the idea of having things real time, right? So automating file transfers is one of those things I said I would talk about, which is, well, if I don't have access to the OS, how am I going to read an external files? Well, this link, which I've included in this presentation, has the ability to integrate Amazon S3 with the Oracle database so that you can read files into the database. Now, it's like, well, it's so much easier just having it on the OS. I 100% agree with you. It's probably easier, a lot easier. However, is it secure? Is it the best way to do things? We could definitely argue and have a whole discussion, but Amazon's saying, hey, look, we're trying to make everything as useful for you as possible. So with this integration, you can then set up security on S3. So if your security department saying, hey, only certain people can upload into this table or upload into this bucket within Amazon S3, you can then know, oh, when I'm reading from this table, or this bucket in Amazon S3, the Oracle database will then say, hey, look, he's reading from this bucket. He already knows it's approved. So then it's already set up correctly. You can then set up roles within AWS using IAM roles to make sure that the correct people are placing things within that bucket. So that way you don't have any issues. It's a huge deal to be able to integrate these services, which honestly, in the long run, are going to be a huge advantage. Being able to know, oh, sorry, remove -RF. Oh, I blew that away, right? The concept that you have deletion policies within Amazon S3 and other things, so that your database can be reliable. You know that you're connected to a specific bucket and you don't have any issues. Now, one of the other things that I was talking about was, everything's done through the console, but through the web. But there is the AWS CLI, which is the command line interface for automating databases, provisioning, spinning things up, monitoring. You can simply, anything you can, I would say probably close to 80, 90, I don't even know the number, right? They say 99% of statistics aren't true, which probably means that 99% of my statements are, well, I guess I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, so I'll stop there. But the idea is that with the AWS CLI, you can create databases such as this. This is a simple command that creates an Oracle database inside of your account that you can spin up and then shut down. You can do an AWS RDS delete database. You can do a create database. There's so many options, and I don't even want to go over them because for every service that AWS has, as you can see here, you have AWS RDS. Then you can have commands for AWS S3. The list goes on and on and on. And even as you can see in this picture, this is a huge benefit because this picture depicts a parameter file, right? The idea that you have the standard create, right, where you have all the parameters, configurations, and the values, but you can do the same thing with the parameter files. AWS has now taken to the next level where instead of SP file with this name, SP file with this name for every database instance, now you can say, hey, these are the parameters that we want consistently across all of our databases. Now, I'm not saying that all of them will be the exact same. Some may need specific use cases or have different things. But in a general sense, you can then, for example, list all of the parameter files or the concepts of which parameters are applied to a database through the AWS CLI console. Huge benefit, and it's an amazing tool that has so many capabilities. So automation is a huge deal, which then, when you automate, you're going to become a better DBA. You're going to learn a little bit about scripting in a way. I think that some of the most successful DBAs have seen the power of code. And while maybe not specifically coders, this is a huge benefit. Now, licensing. It costs about $1,000 to run everything in the cloud for one database. Okay, I'm totally, completely joking there. I am going to let you take the time on your own time to use Amazon's pricing calculator. It's amazing what Amazon has done to make it so that the costs up front are to you. You can run Amazon RDS for Oracle under 2 different licensing models. So license included, let's say that you have your own deal and you're working with Oracle. Well, if you just want to bring that to the cloud, you just need to decide and figure out. AWS has documentation as well as Oracle of how to correctly make sure you're licensed properly. And then there's also the bring your own license model. Now I said license included. Sorry, let me switch that around. I think I may have mixed that up. License included means that you don't have to go out and purchase something different through Oracle. AWS has already taken care of the licensing. You don't have to worry anymore about, am I licensed correctly? That's a huge benefit to being able to say, you know what, I'm just going to want to start an Oracle database. It's on AWS, just go. That's a huge benefit. Whereas, with the bring your own license model, it's going to be probably a little bit more work. It is going to be some more work, just making sure you're correctly licensed. But these are amazing options. And then you also have this option of on-demand versus reserved. This is a huge benefit as well. Let's say that you're going to run a production database for the next 4 to 5 years. Well, next 4 to 5 years, AWS has the option for these reserved instances where you can get a cost reduction versus where you want to have on demand. Now, that's a huge benefit as well, because if you're running on demand, right, you can spin something up, shut it down. It's quick and simple. And so with this concept, AWS has such a huge, and like I said, the point of this discussion was why you should consider an Oracle to AWS RDS migration. So I hope today you have seen the benefits or possibly even the reason why AWS RDS is such a good area to be in. There's lots of action-packed features. There's lots of benefits to automation, the idea of savings and getting over redundant tasks. AWS RDS is a great solution. And with that being said, I'd like to thank the New York Oracle Users Group for reaching out and working with us to let us present this to you. I'd like to open the time now to any questions that anyone has.
Thanks, Brandon. As a reminder, go ahead and submit your questions down in the bottom panel there in the Q&A. Let's give everybody a few minutes here. Thank you to all of our participants who answered our questions. We had some good giveaways coming. So hopefully you all saw my notes.
So Chris, you said, can I use an Oracle Database Enterprise license in AWS? I am more than positive, and I definitely can go look at this and get back to you, Chris, but I'm more than positive that you can use an enterprise license in AWS.
Okay, looks like people are putting them in the chat here.
Yep. So Jamal, looks like you stated Cloud Endure versus DMS. So Cloud Endure is more the block level. So it's basically installing an agent which looks at DOS and kind of replicates blocks to the cloud, whereas DMS is more of a data migration service. So it's actually moving actual schemas to the cloud. So while they are different tools which can be used in different use cases, they are different. As to a preference of which one I like versus the other, I think it comes down to the situation of what you're trying to accomplish. I hope that answers your question, Jamal. Jaydeep, how to create read replication for an Oracle DB. So Jaydeep, for an Oracle DB with read replication, right? The concept is that you create. Now, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I might not have the answer for this one. Would probably have to look this one up specifically. But the idea is that you can create a standby database. You can then promote that, but what happens is when you promote it, it then becomes its own kind of standalone database. For read replica, I believe you would create a active data guard setup, but I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head if that works with RDS. I believe it does, but I would have to check on that one to be exactly sure. Right, there's so many technologies out there, so I don't want to say I have all the answers. I don't, but I know where to find the answers, and I think that's what a lot of people have seen in today's world is you've got to understand the question so that you can then properly answer it. And so I don't want to just come across of oh, it looks like Zane. So Zane from our organization says in RDS, it is pretty much just a checkbox to make the replica readable. So then again, I just don't want to give an incorrect answer with not knowing it off the top of my head. But so it sounds like that is the answer you're looking for. I hope that helps answer your question, JD.
I'm just sending out a quick note here. If there's questions not answered, go ahead and send them to me and I'll redirect them out to Brandon and he can get in touch with you personally so we can get your questions answered. Let's see, anything come in through the Q&A? I don't see anything else coming in. Looks like Zane just sent out another quick chat. Brandon, if you would just want to read that out for.
Yep, it says here, if you are talking RDS, and if you're taking EC2 or on-prem, then read replica requires active data guard, which has additional licensing.
Thank you, Zane. Always good to have a couple experts here on the call. Zane is also in our Oracle practice, and he is actually presenting as well on Oracle in Memory on May 11th. So make sure you sign up for that as well. It'll be our last, I believe, webinar with NYOUG for the time being. All right. I think we can about wrap up here. Brandon, did you have any final words?
Nope, just appreciate everyone today for joining. I hope the session has been helpful to you. And like Jenna said, you can reach out to her and she'll be able to reach out to me or to our team internally to get your questions answered.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Brandon. Thanks everybody for joining. Special thank you to NYOUG. And we'll be sending out the recording just as soon as it's available. So if you hadn't filled out that form, I'll give you a minute here. Make sure you fill out that evaluation, and we'll be sending a work from home package probably later this week or early next week. So, all right, everybody, have a great day. Thank you. Bye.